Okay, Henry. So today we are covering expediting and de-expediting orders. Very exciting stuff. We don't really do this here on the 4th floor, but our materials brethren do this regularly, especially the materials guys at the plants. That's what their job is, basically chasing all the parts in. But the division planners also do some. So expedite, de-expedite orders. So what is order expediting? Fancy term there. Expediting process refers to the procurement organization contacting the supplier for either updates on the delivery schedule or to reassess the schedule based on issues with the supply of parts. Most of the time, expediting is the truck's coming down the line, we don't have all the parts, so let's go get with the supply base and get them in here. Expediting process will usually try to achieve one of two things: requesting that a previously placed order's due date be advanced from where it was, or that it actually be met, and tracking a supplier's ship date in relation to when the part will be needed by the plant. So the due date we usually put on our EDI releases is the date we need it at the plant. So if it takes 3 days to ship and their advanced ship notice doesn't come out within 3 days before, we know we're going to have a problem. So selecting faster shipping methods when they're behind, when necessary, which is usually more expensive in order to meet the plant required dates, which if it's the supplier's fault, the supplier gets to pay for this extra shipping. So requiring the supplier to select faster shipping when the part will not meet the required due date to no fault of the customer. Yeah, I mean, that's when the supplier gets to pay for it. Challenge for this process, and one which is common issue, is who chases the supplier. So in many cases, this will typically be the buyer that placed the order. And in most small to medium-sized firms, you have what's called a buyer planner. And so it's one person. And they will end up calling the supplier and chasing their parts in. In a larger firm like us, the duties are segregated. So we have planners at the plants, and we have division planners at the division headquarters. And then we have the commodity managers at corporate. Who expedites varies from company to company. For many, it may be the buyer who originally placed the order. In others, it may be an administrative function, which is more akin to what we do. In others, expediting is divorced completely from the procurement team and becomes a planning function, which is what we do. The commodity managers generally don't get involved in expediting unless it's a really screwed up situation. It's important to make the lines of communication with the supplier clear. You know, who's going to be calling them for what function. Communication, as with most business processes, is key. Clearly articulating at an early stage to your supplier when you want your part is more likely to result in delivery than leaving things until the last minute. So circumstances requiring follow-up and expediting. So expediting is usually symptomatic of other problems within the organization, and chasing deliveries can happen for several reasons. The part missed its contracted delivery date, which is usually the supplier's fault. Damage has been caused to existing stock, which can be ours or theirs. I mean, I've had forklifts run over stuff in the plant more than once. A customer order has been placed within lead time. So this happens a lot. Shorter lead time than it takes to make the product. So you want a seat in 7 days, but it takes 12 days to make a seat. That's going to be kind of a problem. The supplier is being used has previous issues around delivery schedule. This is some of our suppliers. Regular checks are necessary to ensure deliveries. Defective material needs to be replaced. This happens on occasion. In order to meet an emergency order deadline, equipment breakdown, part lost in transit, sometimes that happens. Techniques that can be used: reprioritizing the supplier's manufacturing plan. especially if they're operating at capacity. This really is a he who shouts loudest gets the part. So we want to make sure they make our parts before they make Freightliner's parts. But by first communicating to your supplier and asking for certain delivery date and then regularly touching base to see if it's still achievable are sometimes all that's required. Incentivizing the supplier, provide an expedite fee. If it's no fault to the suppliers, you just need it faster, then yeah, you can pay an expedite fee. Often techniques such as premium working, late shift weekend work can be utilized to reduce the lead time. Usually they'll want us to pay for that, which is where the incentivized fee comes in. And this may incur additional costs, but will typically yield your parts earlier, assisting the supplier in shortening their supply chain. So they might be out to tier 5 and they may only need tier 3. Your supplier may be waiting on parts or tools, or you may be able to assist the supplier in reducing bottlenecks to get your parts earlier. Alternative supply. So as long as you don't have big expensive molds, this is viable. Maybe a last-ditch effort, you may be able to acquire and improve delivery terms through selecting a different supplier. Sending reminders to supplier of delivery dates. If you send a reminder every day, though, it just becomes noise. Revising orders, working to get an early delivery date, working to get partial orders. Communicating information to stakeholders, reconciling open orders with the supplier. This needs to be done usually by the division planners and PPD. And providing the supplier with a hot list. And division planners are expert at this stuff. Where problems occur with the delivery, a supplier could find themselves hastened multiple times from buyers up to management. So yeah, if you're really messed up as a supplier to PACCAR, you're going to hear from us. Where problems continue and poor performance becomes an issue with the supplier, then a suitable member of the management team should become involved, which is what we do. And ensure your organization has a policy or procedure for supplier escalation. Ensure that it lays out when, how, and who will be involved in the process and shares the information with the supplier. And de-expediting, which is slowing down the delivery date of certain orders. So when we resync, because we're gotta push our schedule back because we can't get enough parts, we want to push all those parts back so we don't have to sit on the inventory. Instructing the supplier to put orders on the side in order to handle the other expedited orders first, and moving due dates of material out in time to do a schedule cut at the plant. And costs of expediting. So usually the big one is premium transportation, air freight, or fast truck service. Supplier is likely to pass on these extra charges because nobody's going to make money that way, unless the part is delayed due to the supplier's fault. Supplier management must determine the cost of expediting freight before authorizing it. And usually the materials guys are the ones handling this. Expedited freight costs are usually a key metric the materials department is measured on. And they are here too. By expediting the orders, the customer may incur lower inventory turns if the material is brought in too early. So that's a kind of a problem with expediting everything. So you reduce your inventory turns because you're sitting on the inventory longer. Lower inventory turns will result in higher inventory costs and more working capital. You got to get a bigger loan. Policies and procedures should be in place to minimize the use of expediting. And a written approval process should be in place to expedite or de-expedite orders. I'm not really sure how we do it in our materials group, but I know they got some process. And all expedited or de-expedited orders should be tracked to keep a record of their frequency. Root cause and corrective action processes. So if you constantly have you're shipping late, then you want to do a corrective root cause and corrective action process. So determine the root cause for each expedited and de-expedited order. Use a histogram or Pareto chart to visibly demonstrate why expediting is occurring. and use a fishbone diagram or affinity diagram to determine why most incidents are occurring. So you remember what the fishbone is. The affinity diagrams where you put the yellow stickies on the wall and then you group them together. So PACCAR's supplier delivery management system, SDM, I don't know if we're still doing this or not, but we were for a long time. So level 1, significant on-time delivery problems, division materials will handle it. Level 2 is severe problems. Corporate purchasing is now getting involved because corporate purchasing is the one with that controls the money. And level 3 means that they're so bad we're going to terminate them as a supplier to PACCAR. You either got to get it fixed or we got to get rid of them. And then D, program is based on the quality 8D form for root cause analysis. So we covered the 8D and 2E2, but we'll cover it again here. So this is the 4-square supplier delivery management. They got information on what the parts are, who the team members are. The root cause is you can understand it at the supplier, why they're shipping late. And then the corrective action summary. Here's the 8D process, which is the 8 disciplines. Form a team, describe the problem, 5 Whys, affinity diagrams. The 5W2H, interesting one I haven't seen. Determine an interim containment plan, otherwise known as an ICA, and a PCA is a permanent correction action. And determine, identify, and verify root cause and escape points. Also identify why the problem was not noticed at the time and use the 5 Whys and the fishbone. And choose and verify permanent corrective actions, implement the corrective actions, take preventive measures, and congratulate your team is the 8th. So we got a few things here. The 8D form that we use comes from a quality group. It's kind of interesting. It's just Excel spreadsheet like everything in quality. And the corrective action report, otherwise known as a CAR. We don't call them CARs here at PACCAR. We call them a fracas. Most people will call them a CAR, corrective action report. Yeah, we're not getting there, so I don't know. I'll have to see where that one went. And here's corrective action presentation and a plan. This is ISM stuff, I think. Yeah, this is smart sheet. Yeah. This looks like ISM stuff. The presentation, I'm not going to worry about. So, Acme is a manufacturer for widgets. The supply manager's main task is to keep the manufacturing line in parts. One of Acme's main suppliers, ABC Corporation, has notified Acme that one of the tier 2 suppliers is shipping late to them, so they will be shipping late to Acme, which is often heard around here. What actions should the supply manager take in this instance? Supply manager should, what do you guys think?
Ideally, we'd want ABC to pay for any expedited needs, but I'm kind of leaning towards B. The supply manager should wait for the parts from ABC or pay for the air freight since ABC is in a force majeure situation with the tier 2 supplier.
Right, and this came up during the pandemic. A force majeure situation, it's not really giving you enough information. It just says that their tier 2 is late. That is not force majeure. That is ABC's problem to fix. Force majeure is an act of God. So it means they cannot, because of this act, they cannot complete their contract, which is shipping on time. Here, that's not saying any act of God occurred. It just says that the supplier, tier two supplier, is late. So I think it's probably A. But you got to be careful of that. Suppliers will claim force majeure for all kinds of garbage. And it's like, okay, it's not an act of God. There's no hurricane or fire or anything like that. You can complete the contract. You're just going to do it late. So you're going to pay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So A is correct. Yeah. All right. So DEF is experiencing a large amount of expediting and premium air freight, which a lot of companies do. Supply manager wants to get to the root cause of the problem. Her first step in the process would be what? Anybody want to guess here? Oops.
I'd go with A.
Yeah, I think it's I think what they're driving at is down here. The affinity diagram is where you're trying to get to the root cause. You go and put all the yellow stickies on the wall about any possible reason that we're doing expediting, and then you try to group the stickies together. And nowadays we probably use electronic stickies, but back in the day we didn't. Let's see what these guys say. Yeah, D. Help categorize the causes of the expediting, and then you can use a Pareto analysis to see what categories are most common. And then you can start figuring out the root cause. All right, so there's 6 questions out there. You guys go get on them and just raise your hand when you get done, or we'll go over them at about 354 or so, 353, 354. All right, let's go over some answers here. Number 1 is alpha. An 8D form will guide the supplier to determining the root cause for the late shipments. That's the first thing you got to do. Why are we late? 2 is Charlie. As Lexi has already completed the first step, getting the supplier to determine the root cause. Next, she needs to expedite the parts. She will be short in the next few days. 3 is Bravo. Not meeting a PO due date is usually a minor breach of contract, but it is a breach of contract. So it's not a force majeure just because the tier 2 shipped late. 4 is Alpha. Because by de-expediting the order, she will keep Acme's inventory turns high. 5 is Delta. Luke should expedite in existing orders on the books and then place orders further out. And 6 is Bravo. Root cause analysis attempts to solve the problem. It does not address the disposition of goods already marked as rejected. All right. Any questions? If not, we will talk to you guys tomorrow.
See you, Rick.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rick.